At my 70th birthday party, my daughter-in-law ripped off the pearl necklace my husband gave me on our wedding day. Old people cling to junk like it's gold, she said. My family watched, and my son laughed. Then my husband removed his wedding ring, the one he'd worn for 48 years, and said words that tore our world apart. Do you know what it feels like to become invisible in your own home the moment you turn 70? My name is Lucy Mitchell. I'm 70 years old. I live in Detroit, Michigan, and I spent 48 years building a construction company from empty lots and borrowed money only to watch a stranger try to erase me like I was already dead. The sound of pearls hitting hardwood froze me in place. Not the shouting, not my son's nervous laughter, but that scatter of 50 small impacts, one for each year Robert promised me back in 1976. Each one rolling away from me like memories I'd never recover. Sarah had just ripped the necklace off my neck. The clasp broke. Pearls everywhere under the couch, behind the bookshelf, rolling into corners I'd never reach. Two crushed under her heel, ground into powder against the oak floor Robert laid with his own hands 30 years ago. Old people cling to junk like it's gold, she said, smiling. Actually smiling. My hands didn't shake. My voice didn't break. I looked at her. Really looked at her and said, "That junk was my wedding gift, but you wouldn't understand that, would you?" Understanding requires a soul. Let me back up, because what happened at my birthday party? That wasn't where this started. The room went silent. That heavy, thick silence where everyone stops breathing at the same time. Then Robert moved. My husband of 48 years, the man who built houses with his bare hands, who survived recessions and losses, and 3 decades of Detroit winters, stood up from his chair with the kind of controlled fury that made grown men take a step back. He walked straight to David, our eldest son, the boy who used to follow his father around construction sites with a plastic hammer, the 37-year-old man who just laughed while his wife destroyed his mother's wedding gift. "I'm going to speak to you, Manto Man," Robert said. His voice was quiet steel wrapped in silk. Nobody speaks to my wife that way. Nobody. Then he did something I'd never seen in 48 years of marriage. He reached up and removed his wedding ring, the ring that never left his finger. Not for cement work, not for surgery, not for anything. He held it in his palm, looked directly at David. Before you existed, before any of you existed, it was just 2 of us. That foundation comes first, always. He deliberately replaced the ring on his finger. Slow, purposeful. This never comes off. She never comes second. Ever. Something shifted inside me. The devastation. The physical pain where the necklace had torn my skin, the emotional shattering from watching my son laugh, it didn't disappear. But Robert's words reminded me of something I'd forgotten in 6 months of being called confused and irrelevant. I wasn't alone. I'd never been alone. Everyone, Robert said, still looking at David but speaking to the room. "We're going to find every pearl. Marcus, Nicole, help your mother. Jennifer, get the twins involved. Make it a treasure hunt." Marcus moved first, then Nicole, then Jennifer with Emma and Tyler. The family began searching on hands and knees, looking under furniture, checking corners. Everyone except David, who stood frozen, his face emptying of expression. Robert and I collected each pearl together in a small wooden box he'd made years ago for keeping hardware screws. We found 48 of 50 pearls, 2 lost forever under Sarah's heel. But what I was about to show everyone would prove that some things can't be destroyed. Not by violence. Not by betrayal. Not by anyone who thinks 70 means done. I stood up. My legs were steady now. My voice was clear. I have something to show everyone. I walked to the TV, picked up the remote. Every eye in the room followed me. Sarah's smile started to fade just slightly, like she was beginning to sense something she'd missed. 2 months ago, I said, I installed security cameras in this house, 3 of them hidden professional-grade recording everything to cloud storage that nobody can access but me and Robert. I pressed play. Sarah's voice filled the room. Crystal clear audio, high to video, timestamps in the corner. The cognitive evaluation will show decline. I've documented dozens of examples. The lawyers said with medical evidence we can petition for guardianship, force them into assisted living, then we liquidate the house transfer business assets. The date stamp, 11:47 p.m., September 18th. Sarah on her phone in our kitchen thinking we were asleep upstairs. I let it play. 3 minutes of Sarah plotting, discussing how to have us declared incompetent, how to seize control, how to turn our grandchildren against their grandmother by teaching them to watch for signs of my supposed confusion. My hands were shaking the day I installed these cameras. I said quietly, pausing the video. I was terrified because I knew what I was going to find, knew that my suspicions, all those months of feeling dismissed and erased, I knew they were right. But I needed proof, undeniable, irrefutable proof. I played another clip, Sarah talking to David. Your mother repeated that story 3 times today. You need to start documenting this. Write it down, dates and times. We'll need it for the doctors. The date stamp, October 3rd, 32 p.m. David's face went absolutely still. He was hearing himself on camera. I know it's hard to watch, but we have to face facts. She's 70. This is natural. I never repeated that story, I said. Not once. But Sarah told you I did. Trained you to see confusion where there was none. Made you believe your mother was declining so you'd help her destroy me. I played clip after clip after clip. I had 47 hours of footage. This was just the beginning. Sarah coaching David on how to document my supposed memory problems. Sarah on phone calls with lawyers discussing guardianship petitions. Sarah telling her friend over wine. They're old. They won't fight. Old people never do. They just accept it and disappear. The room was absolutely silent except for Sarah's voice coming from our TV speakers, planning our destruction in the house we built. I looked around the room, 50 faces staring at me. Some shocked, some horrified, some like Marcus and Nicole, nodding slowly, finally understanding what they'd witnessed over the past 6 months. Every time you called me confused, you were documenting your own crime, I continued. Every time you excluded me from family events, you were creating witnesses to elder abuse. Every time you coached my grandchildren to watch for my decline, you were building my case against you. I walked closer to Sarah. She shrank back in her chair. You thought being 70 meant I was weak, meant I was finished, meant I wouldn't fight back. I paused. But 70 means I've had 70 years to learn exactly how dangerous underestimation can be. Sarah tried to speak. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. The mask, the concerned daughter-in-law who just wanted to help her aging in-laws. It shattered completely. Everyone in that room saw her for exactly what she was. But I wasn't done. Not even close. 3 months ago, I said my voice steady and cold. I suggested to Robert that we protect our home legally permanently. I pulled out a folder from the drawer under the TV, documents I'd organized weeks ago waiting for this exact moment. Robert and I worked together on this. Every protection, every document, every safeguard because we knew what you were planning, Sarah. We just needed to let you reveal yourself first. I opened the folder, started reading first. Our house is now in an irrevocable trust. It cannot be sold except by both of us acting together. It cannot be seized for debts. It cannot be transferred until we're both dead. And it can only pass to children who demonstrated ethical treatment of their parents. I looked at David. That clause was my idea. Second business restructuring with an independent oversight board. 3 outside professionals now review all major financial decisions. No single family member can make unilateral choices anymore. I flipped to the next page. Third power of attorney documents updated with fraud protections. Any attempt to invoke them requires medical evaluation by 3 independent physicians, not one hand-picked Dr. Sarah. 3 with oversight from an elder law attorney. 4th healthcare directives made specific and detailed. What treatments we want, what we refuse, who can make decisions, who absolutely cannot. 5th financial oversight requiring 2-party approval for any transaction over $5,000. Every check, every transfer, every expense logged, documented, reviewed. 6th, complete asset documentation. Every property, every bank account, every investment cataloged and legally shielded. Our attorneys have everything notarized, filed, protected. I closed the folder, looked directly at Sarah. You wanted to declare us incompetent and seize our assets. You thought 70 and 73 meant easy targets, meant we'd be too confused to protect ourselves, too trusting to suspect our own family. My voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. We built legal fortifications you'll never break through. This house is protected. Our business is protected. Our medical decisions are protected. You can't force us out. You can't declare us incompetent. You can't take what we spent 48 years building. Sarah's hands were trembling now. The carefully constructed performance that concerned daughter-in-law just trying to help her declining in-laws. It was completely gone. Everyone in that room saw her naked calculation, her cold assessment of 2 elderly people as obstacles to wealth. Nicole was staring at Sarah like she'd never seen her before. Marcus had his arm around Jennifer, both of them watching with expressions of absolute horror. The twins, Emma and Tyler, pressed against their mother, sensing something terrible happening, but not understanding what. And David, my eldest son, the boy, I raised the man I taught business from the ground up. He was crying silent tears running down his face as he realized what his wife had been planning, what he'd almost helped her do. But I still wasn't finished because the legal protections, those just stopped Sarah from taking our house in business. They didn't address what she'd already taken. 8 weeks ago, I said, Tom showed me something interesting. Tom, our supervisor for 25 years, the man who started as a laborer at 19 and worked his way up to running job sites, who knew our business inside and out. Invoices that didn't match deliveries, I continued. Equipment that never arrived. Materials we paid for but never ordered. At first I thought maybe it was the new digital system. Maybe I paused. Maybe I was just old and confused the way everyone kept telling me I was. I pulled out another folder much thicker than the first. So I called a friend, Helen. You remember Helen Sarah? You met her at Thanksgiving. She's been my friend for 40 years. Her brother-in-law is Frank Patterson, retired federal investigator forensic accountant. Sarah's face went absolutely still, the kind of stillness that comes when you realize you've made a catastrophic miscalculation. I hired Frank 8 weeks ago, told him I suspected financial irregularities, asked him to investigate everything, every transaction, clears throat, every invoice, every payment for the past 2 years. I opened the folder, spreadsheets, bank records, highlighted discrepancies. Tom gave me access to the office at 5:00 a.m. Before you arrived, Sarah. Before you could see what I was doing, I spent weeks comparing digital records against the physical files you thought you'd eliminated. I called vendors, directly verified invoices, tracked payments, documented every single discrepancy. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady. Sure, this was my business, my life's work, and I'd spent 8 weeks taking it back. $287,000, I said. That's how much you stole over 18 months through 167 separate fraudulent transactions. The number landed like a physical blow. David made a sound something between a gasp and a sob. Fake invoices for equipment that was never delivered. I continued reading from Frank's summary. Shell companies tracing back to your personal accounts. Conference fees for events you never attended. Vendor payments rerouted through transaction mazes designed to look legitimate but actually funneling straight to accounts you controlled. I laid out page after page, security footage showing Sarah accessing company accounts at 3:00 a.m., bank records showing deposits to her personal accounts matching exactly the amounts of fraudulent invoices, vendor testimony confirming they'd never done business with Mitchell and Sons Construction despite being paid thousands of dollars. You were careful, I said. I'll give you that. The amounts were small enough not to trigger immediate red flags. The transactions were spread across different categories. The timing was strategic. You knew our business well enough to know exactly where to hide theft. I looked at her, really looked at her. But you made one critical miscalculation. You thought my silence meant sility. You mistook my patience for confusion. You assume that because I'm 70, I wouldn't understand accounting anymore, wouldn't be able to track digital transactions, wouldn't be capable of conducting a forensic investigation. I set down the folder. Every insult you swallowed bought another piece of proof. While you called me confused, I was documenting systematic theft. While you trained my grandchildren to watch for my supposed memory problems, I was tracking your financial crimes. While you convinced my son that I was declining, I was building a case that will follow you for the rest of your life. The room was so quiet. I could hear Emma's soft breathing, Tyler's small hiccup, Nicole's sharp intake of air as she processed what her sister-in-law had done. David was staring at Sarah like he'd never seen her before, and in a way, he hadn't. He'd seen the mask, the performance, the carefully constructed, concerned wife who just wanted to help her aging in-laws. He'd never seen the predator underneath. But he was about to see even more because Sarah's theft. That wasn't her first time. I looked toward the hallway. Frank, you can come in now. The door opened. Frank Patterson stepped into the living room exactly as I'd planned, exactly when I'd orchestrated. This entire confrontation had been choreographed, every revelation timed for maximum impact, every piece of evidence arranged to build a case that no one could deny. Frank carried a briefcase. He nodded at me, then at Robert, then looked around the room with the calm professionalism of someone who'd spent 30 years as a federal investigator examining financial crimes. Mrs. Mitchell asked me to investigate potential financial irregularities 8 weeks ago, Frank said. His voice was measured factual. What I found was $280,000 in documented theft. But that wasn't the most disturbing discovery. He opened his briefcase, pulled out another folder. Sarah Thompson Mitchell has done this before twice. The room went absolutely still. Even the children stopped moving. Michael Torres, Atlanta, Georgia, 10 years ago. Sarah married Michael when his mother was 71. Identical pattern. Inserted herself into family business operations. Systematically embezzled funds. Began process to have elderly mother declared incompetent. The family discovered the theft confronted Sarah, settled privately for $180,000 rather than prosecute. Sarah disappeared. Frank laid out documents, marriage license, divorce decree, private settlement agreement Michael's lawyer provided after Frank contacted him. Richard Chen, Houston, Texas, 6 years ago. Sarah married Richard when his father was 68. Same methodology. Love-bombed the son, isolated him from aging parents, suggested the parent was declining, gained access to business finances, stole systematically prepared guardianship paperwork. The family caught her settled privately for $215,000, made her sign a non-disclosure agreement. She moved again. More documents, another marriage, another elderly parent, another pattern of theft and manipulation. I spoke with both families at length, Frank continued. They described identical tactics, making the elderly parent feel confused by questioning their memory, excluding them from family gatherings while claiming it was for their own good, training grandchildren to watch for signs of decline, stealing gradually enough to avoid immediate detection, preparing legal documents to seize control upon the parent's death or incapacitation. He looked directly at Sarah. You specialize in targeting wealthy families with vulnerable elderly parents in their late 60s and early 70s. You marry the adult child, gain access to family finances, weaponize ageist stereotypes to isolate and discredit the parents, steal systematically, and position yourself to inherit maximum assets. The previous families paid you to disappear rather than face public scandal. Frank closed his briefcase. But this time, you chose the wrong elderly couple to target. Because Lucy Mitchell isn't vulnerable, she's strategic, and she's been documenting everything you've done for months. Sarah tried to speak. Her voice came out strangled. That's those people. You can't prove. I can prove everything, Frank said calmly. I have signed statements from both previous families, financial records, marriage and divorce documentation, settlement agreements that explicitly forbid you from engaging in similar conduct again. You violated those agreements, which means those families can now pursue civil and criminal remedies retroactively. He pulled out another document, placed it on the coffee table in front of Sarah. This is a letter from Michael Torres's attorney. They're prepared to file charges the moment they hear you've targeted another family. This another document is from Richard Chen's legal team. Same commitment. They've been waiting for this moment. Sarah stared at the documents like they were venomous snakes. And this, Frank said, producing a final folder is correspondence from elder abuse prosecutors in 3 states. They're very interested in establishing pattern evidence for serial financial exploitation of vulnerable adults. 1 case might be settled privately, 2 cases might be coincidence, but 3 cases that's a prosecutable pattern. The silence was absolute. Sarah's carefully constructed world was collapsing in real time, and everyone in the room was watching it happen. David looked at Sarah. Really looked at her like he was seeing her for the first time. 2 other families. His voice broke. You did this twice before. 2 other people's parents. Sarah's mouth opened, closed. She looked around the room at 50 people watching her mask disintegrate and did the only thing she had left. She pulled out her phone, dialed her lawyer, put it on speaker. I need you to come to, she started. The lawyer's voice came through crisp and professional. Ms. Mitchell, I've advised you repeatedly about discussing ongoing matters publicly. Just get here, Sarah snapped. Now Lucy walked to the TV, picked up the remote again. Robert, play 5 seconds of the video for Sarah's lawyer. Robert pressed play. Sarah's voice filled the room. The cognitive evaluation will show decline. I've documented dozens of examples. The lawyer went silent. Complete, absolute silence on the other end. Then I need to consult with my client privately. I'll call you back." The line went dead. Sarah stared at her phone, then at Lucy, then at the 50 people in the room who'd just watched her lawyer abandon her the moment he heard evidence of elder abuse. "Here's what's going to happen," clear's throat, Lucy said. Her voice was steady, cold, final. "You're going to return every stolen dollar, all 287,000 dealers. You have 48 days. 48, Nicole said quietly. "Why not 30? Because I'm giving her a slight extension for liquid asset access," Lucy replied, still looking at Sarah. "I want the money, not excuses. 48 days, Lucy continued. "Second, you're going to sign a detailed confession of every fraudulent transaction, every invoice, every theft, every lie. Frank has prepared the documents. You'll sign each page. Third, complete resignation from all company positions. Effective immediately, you'll never access our business again. Fourth, zero contact with our grandchildren ever. You taught Emma and Tyler to watch for signs of my supposed confusion. You weaponize children against their grandmother. You don't get access to them anymore. Fifth, total exclusion from all family assets and inheritance. When Robert and I die, which won't be for a long time, you get nothing. Not $1, not one piece of furniture. Nothing." Lucy's voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. "Or I file criminal charges for elder financial exploitation. I coordinate with Michael Torres and Richard Chen to establish pattern testimony for federal charges. I ensure your name and face are on the news as a serial con artist who targets elderly parents. I make sure every single person in this country knows exactly what you are." The room was absolutely silent. Even the twins had stopped moving, sensing the weight of what was happening. Sarah's phone rang. Her lawyer, she answered. Hands shaking, listened. Her face went even more rigid. She hung up, looked at Lucy. "He said I should sign." "Smart lawyer," Lucy replied. Frank pulled documents from his briefcase. A notary appeared from the hallway. Another person Lucy had arranged in advance. Another piece of her carefully orchestrated confrontation. Sarah sat at the dining room table, the same table where we'd shared Sunday dinners, where I'd watched her charm my family, where she'd slowly, systematically convinced everyone that I was declining. She signed every page, every admission, every detail of every theft. The notary stamped each document, witnessed each signature, made it legal, binding, permanent. When Sarah finished, she looked at David, reached for his hand. "David, please." He pulled away. "Don't. Just don't." My son was crying. Deep, wrenching sobs. The sound of someone realizing they'd enabled the destruction of the people who gave them life. I laughed. David said, his voice breaking. "While she destroyed your birthday gifts. While she ripped off your necklace. I told my 70-year-old mother her behavior didn't help. I chose this woman over you for 2 years." He looked at me at Robert. How do I come back from that? I wanted to comfort him. Clear's throat. Wanted to tell him it was okay. But Robert's hand on my shoulder reminded me David needed to feel this. Needed to sit in what he'd done, what he'd almost done. "You start by understanding what you participated in," I said quietly. "You start by accepting that forgiveness doesn't erase damage. You have years of rebuilding ahead, David. Years." Sarah stood, grabbed her purse. Her phone looked around the room one last time at the family she'd tried to destroy. "You're 70 years old," she said to me. Her voice was venomous, stripped of all pretense. "You're going to die soon anyway. All of this for what, a few more years." I looked at her. This woman who saw my age as permission, who thought 70 meant done, who believed elderly people were obstacles to inheritance, rather than human beings with value. I'm 70 years old, I said, which means I don't have time left to waste on second chances for people who saw my age as permission to destroy me. Get out of my house. Sarah walked to the door, opened it, stopped. The money will be in the account in 48 days, she said without turning around. Then I'm gone. Good, I replied. And Sarah, every family you target from now on, I'm going to warn them. Michael Torres and Richard Chen are going to warn them. Your pattern is documented. Your name is known. You're done preying on elderly parents. She left. The door closed behind her. 50 people stood in my living room processing what they'd just witnessed. And I realized for the first time in 6 months I could breathe. But this victory didn't happen by accident. It didn't happen overnight. And it didn't happen because Sarah underestimated a confused old woman. It happened because 48 years ago I made a promise to a man who promised me 50 years. Let me show you how we kept that promise. Robert and I got married in a church basement with folding chairs and borrowed decorations. We were 22 and 25. We had $200 in wedding gifts, cash and envelopes from family who couldn't afford it, but gave anyway. Our wedding night, Robert gave me a necklace, 50 pearls on a silk thread. He'd saved for 6 months working overtime at the factory, eating leftovers, skipping lunches. Why 50, I asked. Because he said fastening it around my neck in our tiny apartment. I can't wait to spend 50 years with you and celebrate with a huge family the love we have. 50 years. It seemed impossible. We were so young, so broke, so completely unprepared for everything ahead. We used the $200 to buy 2 vacant lots in Detroit for $8,000. Borrowed the rest on a 10-year note that terrified us both. The lots were rubble-broken, concrete weeds, nothing. Robert started building. I did books on a card table in our garage. We hired 3 employees, men who needed work as desperately as we needed help. 1 truck, faith, and stubbornness. I remember the first house. Robert built it board by board. I handled permits, invoices, client calls. We worked 16-hour days, slept 4 hours, got up and did it again. David was born in 1987, Nicole in 1989, Marcus in 1997. The kids grew up in sawdust, learned to walk on construction sites, did homework in the office, while I reviewed contracts. They knew the smell of fresh lumber, the sound of power tools, the satisfaction of creating something permanent from nothing. By David's 10th birthday, we had 15 employees, a reputation for quality. Robert refused to compromise. His philosophy: build it like it's yours. Build it like your grandmother's going to live there. We survived the 2008 recession when competitors collapsed around us. Cut our own salaries, ate savings, refused to cut corners, or lay off employees who'd been with us for years. It almost broke us, but we survived. By David's college graduation, we had 40 employees, 200 renovated homes across Detroit, generational client relationships, grandchildren hiring us because their grandparents trusted us decades ago. David started full-time at 25, learned everything from Robert for 12 years. How to read blueprints, how to manage crews, how to deal with difficult clients, how to honor the legacy we'd built from those 2 vacant lots and $200 in wedding gifts. Meanwhile, Marcus learned business operations for 5 years. Nicole became senior financial manager for 3 years, both being groomed as potential successors, depending on how David's leadership developed. By 37, David managed 80% of operations. Robert and I started planning gradual advisory transition, not retirement. We'd never fully retire from something we built from nothing but stepping back, letting the next generation lead. We thought David was ready. thought he understood what we'd built, thought he valued the foundation Robert and I created before he existed. March 2022, David met Sarah at a Chicago business conference. Long-distance courtship phone calls and weekend visits. She moved to Detroit 6 months later. He brought her to Sunday dinner. She was perfect, asked intelligent questions, complimented Robert's craftsmanship, expressed genuine, seeming interest in our origin story, laughed at the right moments, said all the right things. I liked her. I actually liked her. Engagement after 4 months, marriage after 8 months fast, but David was 35, mature, successful. We trusted his judgment. Our wedding gift, a house, one Robert and I custom renovated together, built-ins Robert crafted by hand, hardwood floors he laid on his knees, kitchen I designed with cabinets we'd saved from a demolition job and restored. Every detail intentional, every corner filled with our work. It was worth $340. We gave it to them, free and clear. 6 months later, Sarah gutted it, ripped out the built-ins, replaced Robert's hardwood with luxury vinyl painted over exposed brick, installed modern furniture that looked like it came from a catalog. I drove by one day, saw a dumpster in the driveway, walked up. Inside, Robert's custom built-ins, shattered, thrown away like trash. I stood there on the sidewalk looking at wood Robert had shaped with his own hands. He'd spent 3 weeks on those built-ins, measured twice, cut once, sanded until the grain showed perfect. Applied 6 coats of finish, waiting 24 hours between each coat, because that's how you do it right. I picked up a piece. The corner of a shelf still had the router detail Robert carved. That signature edge he put on everything he built, now cracked in half, destined for a landfill. I put it back in the dumpster, drove home, walked into our house, found Robert in his workshop. I saw the dumpster, I said. He looked up from the table he was building, saw my face, set down his tools. She gutted it, I continued. Everything you built, it's all in a dumpster on the curb. Robert's jaw tightened. That was all. Just that small movement. But I'd been married to him for over 40 years. I knew what it meant. It was their gift, he said finally. Their house, their choices. We stood there in his workshop, surrounded by wood and tools, and the smell of sawdust. 40-some years of building things that lasted, creating things, meant to outlive us, and our son's wife had thrown it all away like garbage. I don't trust her, I said quietly. Robert nodded. Neither do I, but we didn't know yet what she was capable of. Didn't understand that the house was just practice, that she was learning what we valued, so she'd know exactly how to destroy us. We'd figure that out soon enough. David noticed my face that Sunday. It's our house now, Mom. Sarah has her own style. You understand, right? I understood. I understood that Sarah looked at something Robert built with his hands and saw an obstacle to her vision, saw something old that needed to be erased. I just didn't realize yet that she saw us the same way. 1 year after the wedding, Sarah joined the company. Administrative tasks, modernizing systems, bringing things into the current century. David was thrilled. She has a business degree, Mom. Contemporary practices. She can help us expand. The initial changes seemed positive: new database, updated scheduling, professional invoicing systems. I thought maybe I'd misjudged her. Maybe the house renovation was just personal taste. Maybe she really wanted to help. But every improvement distanced us from systems I'd built, removed my fingerprints, made me feel like a visitor in my own company. Then came the restaurant dinner. Sarah and David invited us to this upscale place downtown. White tablecloths, wine lists, the kind of place we never went because we preferred diners where you knew the owner's name. Halfway through appetizers, Sarah leaned forward, smiled, said, "We've been thinking. This house you're in, it's so big, so much maintenance. At your age, wouldn't something smaller make more sense? A nice condo. We could help you downsize, make things easier. At your age." Those 3 words, casual, friendly, loaded with implications. Robert's hand found mine under the table, squeezed, warning me. "We like our house," I said carefully. "Of course," Sarah replied smoothly. "But realistically, you're 70 and 73. Managing a house that size, staying involved in daily business operations, it's a lot. We just want to make sure you're not overwhelming yourselves. We care about you." David nodded. "She's right, Mom. We just want what's best for you." I looked at my son, the boy I raised, the man who'd worked beside us for 12 years, and realized he believed every word she'd said. That's when I started paying real attention, started rewinding every conversation, every compliment, every suggestion, every concerned look. Sarah didn't marry David for love. She married him because Robert and I were the perfect age, successful enough to be worth targeting, old enough that questions about our competence would sound reasonable, vulnerable enough in her mind to be easily erased. Every question about our origin story hadn't been genuine interest. It was reconnaissance assessment, measuring what we'd built so she'd know exactly what to take. And I realized, sitting in that expensive restaurant with white tablecloths and wine I didn't want, that Sarah had been planning this since the day she met us. She just needed us old enough that the plan would work. Well, she got her wish. I turned 70, and everything she'd been building toward finally exploded. The Sunday dinner started 2 weeks after that restaurant conversation. "We want to see you more," Sarah said, "every Sunday at our house family tradition." It sounded lovely, except I wasn't invited. "We thought you'd be tired," David explained when I asked. "At your age, all that socializing can be exhausting. We didn't want to overwhelm you at your age." There it was again. They posted photos later. Everyone together, Marcus and Jennifer Nicole with the twins, David and Sarah Robert, everyone except me. I asked Marcus about it Thursday morning at the office. He looked uncomfortable. Sarah said you needed rest, that at 70 constant social interaction was draining, that we should be considerate of your limitations. My limitations. Mom, she's just trying to help. I'm not tired, Marcus. I'm 70, not 90, and I didn't need rest. I needed to be included, but the damage was done. Sarah had planted the seed. Lucy's too old for long gatherings. Lucy needs special accommodation. Lucy's different, now fragile, limited. The office takeover intensified. I'd arrive at 7 a.m., my usual time for 30 years, and find Sarah already there at my old desk using my computer. My files boxed up in storage labeled Archived L. Mitchell. The new receptionist Sarah hired looked confused when I walked in. "Do you have an appointment today, Mrs. Mitchell?" "Appointment in the office I built, in the company I created from a card table in my garage." "No," I said carefully. "I work here." Oh, she looked flustered. "I'm sorry. I didn't let me check the schedule." "Don't worry about it," I said. Smiled. Walked to what used to be my office. Sarah was there at my desk. She looked up surprised. "Lucy, I didn't know you were coming in today. I come in every day." "Right?" "Of course. It's just, we've been trying to handle things so you don't have to worry. Give you some breathing room. If you need something, just let me know and I'll pull up the files for you." Translation. "You're not welcome here anymore. This is my space now. I'll grant you access if I decide you need it." A week later, I arrived for a meeting with the Hendersons' clients I'd worked with for 18 years. They were expanding their restaurant third location and wanted Mitchell and Sons to handle the renovation. Sarah was already in the conference room with David and the Hendersons. "Oh, Lucy," Sarah said, smiling. "I didn't realize you were planning to attend this meeting. David and I have it covered. We didn't want to overwhelm you with too many commitments." Mrs. Henderson looked confused. "But Lucy always handles our projects." "Of course," Sarah said smoothly. "And Lucy's consultation has been invaluable in preparing for today. But given the complexity of this expansion and some of Lucy's recent challenges with the new project management software, we thought it would be better if David took the lead going forward. Lucy can certainly review plans if she'd like, but we don't want to burden her with the day-to-day details." I stood in the doorway of my own conference room, in my own company, being told I was too incompetent to handle clients I'd maintained for nearly 2 decades. Mr. Henderson shifted uncomfortably. "If Lucy thinks that's best." Everyone looked at me, waiting for me to confirm Sarah's narrative, to agree that I was overwhelmed, struggling, unable to handle the work I'd done for 30 years. I could have fought, could have said Sarah was lying, could have demanded my seat at that table, but I was building a case. And every humiliation, every exclusion, every public dismissal, it was all evidence. "I'm sure David will do fine," I said. I walked back to what used to be my office, sat at the desk. Sarah had relegated me to the small one in the corner, the one we used to give to interns, and I documented everything. Time, date, witnesses, exact words spoken. Sarah thought she was erasing me. She was actually writing her own indictment. The grandchildren were next. Tyler asked me at a family dinner, "Grandma, did you forget? You told me that already." I stopped mid-sentence. "What, that story about Dad when he was little you told me last week?" I tried to remember. Had I told him that story recently? I didn't think so. But Tyler looked so certain, so patient, like he'd been taught to be gentle with someone who was confused. Aunt Sarah said, "You forget things now," Emma added helpfully. She was 7, innocent, just repeating what she'd heard. She said, "We should be patient because your brain is getting old." She said, "It's normal, and we shouldn't make you feel bad about it." My stomach dropped, not from confusion, from clarity. Crystal, horrifying clarity. Sarah was teaching my grandchildren to watch for signs of my decline, training them to be witnesses, preparing testimony from the mouths of children who wouldn't understand they were being weaponized. Grandma Tyler looked worried. "Are you okay?" I smiled, swallowed the rage. "I'm fine, baby. Just thinking." Nicole noticed the next week. "Mom, the kids are acting weird around you, like they're watching you, waiting for you to mess up." "Sarah's planting seeds," I said quietly. "So when she makes her move, when she claims I'm incompetent, everyone will have examples. The grandchildren will confirm my repeated stories. David will document my supposed confusion. The family will believe I'm declining because they've been watching for signs." That's Nicole looked stricken. "That's evil." "That's strategic," I corrected. "And it's working." 6 weeks before my birthday, I arrived at the office at 5:00 a.m. Before Sarah, before anyone. Tom was there. Our supervisor for 25 years, the man who started as a laborer and worked his way up to running job sites. "Mrs. Mitchell," he said, looking relieved. "I need to show you something." He pulled up invoices, equipment orders, material payments, started pointing to discrepancies. "This invoice says we paid $12,000 for lumber, but we only received $8,000 worth. This one, $15,000 for equipment that never arrived. This one, conference fees for an event nobody attended." He scrolled through months of records, at least a year, maybe longer. I started noticing 3 months ago, but wasn't sure. Thought maybe it was the new system, but it's not. Someone's stealing and David won't listen. My hands went cold. How much I don't know? Tens of thousands at minimum, maybe more. I made copies, hid them in my car, spent the rest of the day reviewing records, comparing invoices to actual deliveries, tracking patterns. That afternoon, I tried talking to David, showed him the discrepancies. Look at this invoice. The amounts don't match what we received. Sarah handles the books, now David said, barely looking up. I'm sure what you're seeing is just the new system. You're not familiar with how it works. I built the system she's using. He interrupted. Gentle, patient. The tone you use with someone who's confused. You built the old system. This is different, more complex. And honestly, Sarah mentioned you've been having trouble following the new procedures, getting confused about digital filing. There it was. Sarah had already laid groundwork, already convinced David that my concerns were symptoms, signs of decline. I'm not confused, I said. I know you don't think you are Mom. But he stopped, looked uncomfortable. Look, we all notice things as we get older. It's normal, nothing to be ashamed of. I sat there in my son's office in the company I built, being told gently, lovingly, patiently that my mind was going. I left, walked to my car, sat in the parking lot. I didn't cry, I planned. If they thought I was old, confused, and irrelevant, I'd perception. Let them think I was fading. Let them think I was defeated while building the case that would destroy Sarah completely. I called Helen that night. My friend of 40 years asked if she knew anyone who could investigate financial fraud. My brother-in-law, she said immediately. Frank Patterson, clears throat, retired federal investigator forensic accountant. He's the best. I called Frank the next morning, met him at a coffee shop, explained everything. He listened, took notes, asked precise questions. If I find what you think I'm going to find, he said finally, this destroys your family, your son's marriage, your business reputation. Are you prepared? I thought about 6 months of marginalization, about being excluded from Sunday dinners, about my grandchildren watching me for signs of confusion, about my son believing I was declining. I'm 70 years old, I said. I don't have time left to waste protecting people who've decided I'm disposable. Frank started investigating. I started documenting every dismissive comment, every exclusion, every manipulation. Every time Sarah questioned my memory or suggested I was confused, and I installed cameras, 3 of them, professional-grade hidden, recording everything to cloud storage. The cameras were my idea because I knew Sarah's manipulation would escalate, knew she'd get careless in private, knew I needed video evidence of her calculating predatory nature. For 8 weeks, I watched, I documented, I built my case. Sarah had no idea. She thought I was defeated, thought I was fading quietly, thought 70 meant done. She was about to learn exactly how wrong she was. 3 weeks before my birthday, I found the property assessment folder. I wasn't snooping. Our water heater was making strange noises, that mechanical groan that means expensive repairs coming. I needed the warranty information. Robert usually filed that stuff in his office desk. Instead, I found a folder marked Property Assessment Mitchell Residence. Inside, professional appraisals, market analysis, comparable sales. Our house evaluated at $680,000, notes in Robert's handwriting, phone numbers for real estate attorneys, questions about capital gains, timeline estimates. My first instinct was fear. After the restaurant dinner, after weeks of being marginalized, after everything, was Robert planning to sell our house? Then I stopped. Thought this was Robert, my husband of 48 years. We'd built everything together, raised 3 children, survived losses and recessions and joy and grief. I didn't panic. I asked. Walked directly to his workshop where he was sanding a cabinet door. I found the property assessment folder. What's going on? Robert looked up, set down the sandpaper. Long silence. Then I'm protecting the house, creating an irrevocable trust, making it impossible for anyone to force us out. I stared at him. You're protecting it. After that restaurant dinner, I started thinking about what Sarah could try. If she convinced David we were incompetent, got legal control, tried to force a sale. So I called lawyers, got the house appraised for the trust documents, built protections. Why didn't you tell me? His voice cracked slightly, because I wasn't sure if you'd noticed Sarah's campaign yet. Wasn't sure if you knew what was happening. Didn't want to scare you if you hadn't seen it. And if you had seen it, I wanted protections in place before we talked, so I could tell you we were already safe. I sat on his workbench, processed this. My husband of 48 years protecting me, protecting us, building fortifications while I thought I was alone. I found something too, I said quietly. I told him about Tom showing me the discrepancies about the invoices that didn't match about my suspicion that Sarah had been stealing for over a year. Robert went very still. How much I don't know yet, but it's substantial. Tens of thousands at minimum, maybe more. We looked at each other across his workshop. Sawdust in the air, afternoon light through windows, 48 years of partnership. We need help, Robert said. I nodded. I have a contact. Helen gave me a name. Frank Patterson, forensic accountant, retired federal investigator. I already called him. Good. We went to Frank's office the next day, 3 people around a conference table. Frank laid out options, risks, consequences. If I find what you think I'm going to find, he said, this destroys your family. Are you sure you want to proceed? Robert reached across the table, took my hand. We're 70 and 73 years old, I said. We don't have time left to waste protecting people who've decided we're disposable. We made a plan. Frank would investigate. 8 weeks total, 3 weeks intensive analysis, 5 weeks additional documentation. I would document Sarah's marginalization campaign. Every comment, every exclusion, every manipulation. I would install security cameras in our home, professional grade, hidden comprehensive coverage. Robert would complete the legal protections based on my strategy trust power of attorney healthcare directives, business restructuring. We would pretend to be distant from each other. Let Sarah think she was succeeding in separating us. We would wait for my 70th birthday. Maximum family audience, maximum impact. The cameras were my idea, I explained to Frank. Audio can be disputed, but video clear faces. Body language context, that's undeniable. Smart, Frank said. Very smart. I had the cameras installed within a week. 3 units, living room, home office, kitchen, hidden in smoke detectors and picture frames, recording continuously to cloud storage Sarah could never access or delete. She wants us separated, Robert said that night. Wants us doubting each other, isolated, weak. Then we'll give her what she expects, I replied. We'll seem distant, disconnected. She'll think she's winning until the moment we destroy her. For 8 weeks, we performed polite but distant at family dinners. Didn't touch as much in public. Arrived at the office separately. Seemed like 2 people drifting apart under stress. Sarah noticed, started making comments. It's so hard when couples grow apart in their later years. Different speeds of decline, different capacities. David asked Robert, "Are you and Mom okay?" "We're managing," Robert said carefully. "It's been a difficult time." Meanwhile, the cameras captured everything. Sarah cornering Robert. Sarah on phone, clears throat calls with lawyers discussing capacity evaluations. Sarah coaching David to document examples of my supposed confusion. At night alone in our bedroom, we reviewed Frank's findings, studied Sarah's theft patterns, watched security footage, built the comprehensive case. She has no idea, I said. She thinks we're too old to fight back, Robert replied. That's going to be her biggest mistake. We shared the evidence with Marcus and Nicole 2 weeks before my birthday. Needed them prepared. Needed them ready to step into leadership when David was removed. David has no idea, Marcus asked, stricken. David thinks we're declining. I said Sarah has convinced him. He won't believe us until he sees the evidence himself. This is going to break him, Nicole said softly. He made his choice, Robert replied. Now he lives with the consequences. The day before my birthday party, we did final preparations. Frank confirmed he'd arrive exactly when I called. Notary on standby. Sarah's previous victims had provided statements. Criminal attorney briefed. Evidence organized. I stood in our bedroom looking at the 50-pearl necklace in its case. I knew what was coming tomorrow. Knew Sarah would try to destroy it. Knew it was part of the plan. Let Sarah reveal her violence in front of everyone, then strike back with overwhelming evidence. Robert came up behind me, put his hands on my shoulders. Tomorrow, he said. Tomorrow. I agreed. Are you ready? I thought about 6 months of marginalization, being called confused, being excluded, watching my grandchildren treat me like I was fragile, watching my son choose a con artist over his mother. I'm ready. Robert kissed the top of my head. Before you existed, he said softly, repeating the words he'd say tomorrow. It was just 2 of us, and it still is. I finished. We stood together in the bedroom of the house we built, ready to defend everything we'd created, ready to prove that a partnership of 48 years is stronger than any predator who thought age meant weakness. Sarah repaid $287,000 exactly at 11:47 p.m. on day 48, last possible moment, probably hoping for forgiveness. No forgiveness came. I filed criminal charges the next morning, not for theft. We'd taken settlement on that, but for assault on an elderly person, the physical act of ripping the necklace off my neck during the birthday party. The violence everyone witnessed, the prosecution succeeded felony conviction. Public criminal record. Sarah's name permanently exposed in court documents, and news coverage as someone who assaults elderly victims. She didn't disappear quietly this time. She was marked publicly, legally. David moved back home 3 days after the party. Took the guest room where my mother Dorothy died 5 years ago. First night I heard him crying through the walls. Deep, wrenching sobs. I started toward his room. Robert stopped me. He needs to feel this. Needs to sit in what he did. What he almost did. So I let him cry. Let him reckon. David started therapy twice weekly, working through betrayal, manipulation, guilt, trying to understand his blindness. She love-bombed me, he said one morning over coffee. We were sitting in the kitchen, just the 2 of us trying to rebuild something from wreckage. That's what the therapist calls it. Made me feel special, understood, supported, then slowly isolated me from you and Dad. Made me dependent on her validation, made me see you through her eyes. I know I said, but I let her. I chose to believe her. I'm 37 years old. I should have known better. Should have protected you instead of laughing while she broke your necklace. Silence. Heavy silence. Can you forgive me? He asked. I looked at my son. Really looked at him. This 37-year-old man who'd laughed while his wife destroyed my wedding gift. Who'd helped document my supposed confusion. Who'd chosen a predator over his mother for 2 years. Forgiveness isn't a switch I flip, I said quietly. It's not something I can just decide and then everything's fine. I know, but let me finish. My voice was firm, not angry, just honest. I forgive you because you're my son, because I understand manipulation, because I see you're genuinely trying to reckon with what you did. But David, forgiveness doesn't erase damage. It doesn't restore trust. It doesn't make the last 2 years disappear. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. Every Sunday you excluded me from family dinner. I sat home wondering what I'd done wrong. Every time you dismissed my concerns as confusion, part of me wondered if maybe I really was declining. Every time you chose her version of reality over mine, you taught me that my own son didn't believe me. Mom, I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying it because you need to understand what you're asking me to forgive. It's not one mistake. It's not one bad decision. It's 2 years of systematic betrayal. 2 years of watching my son become a stranger who saw me as an obstacle instead of a person. Clear's throat. David put his head in his hands, sobbed. I let him cry. Didn't comfort him. Didn't minimize his pain or rush to make it better. After a long time, he looked up. How do I fix this time? I said, consistency. Years of showing me through actions, not words, that you've changed. Years of proving that you see me as I am, not as Sarah trained you to see me. Years of rebuilding what you helped destroy. Years, he repeated quietly. Yes, years. And even then, David, some things stay broken. You'll never work in the family business again. That's permanent. You can be my son, but you can't be my business partner. That trust is gone. He absorbed this, nodded slowly. I understand. Do you? Because this is the rest of your life. This is accepting that your choices have consequences that don't go away just because you're sorry. Can you live with that? David met my eyes. I have to, because the alternative, losing you completely, that's worse. It wasn't reconciliation, not yet. But it was honest, real, the beginning of something that might eventually, over years of work and proof and patience, become healing. But we weren't there yet, not even close. We restructured the business immediately. Marcus became CEO. He'd been trained intensively for 5 years as succession planning. Nicole became CFO. She'd been senior financial manager for 3 years already. David was permanently removed from the company. I told him directly. No ambiguity, no false hope. It didn't work out for you mixing business and family. We forgive you as our son, but we can't trust you professionally anymore. You need to find employment elsewhere, like anyone else would. David accepted this, started looking for work outside the family business. The separation was permanent. He was still our son, still welcome at family dinners, but he'd never work in the family business again. Family healing began slowly. Nicole brought the twins over Thursdays for supervised visits, watching Emma and Tyler interact with me, ready to intervene if they seemed uncomfortable. Emma asked while planting flowers in my garden, "Grandma, are you still sick?" "I was never sick, baby." But Aunt Sarah said Aunt Sarah lied about a lot of things. My brain works fine. My memory works fine. I've always been fine. Tyler firmly. That's stealing when you lie to get things. Yes, I said. That's exactly what it is. The twins gradually relaxed, stopped treating me as fragile, stopped watching for confusion signs. By week 6, Emma climbed on me again. Tyler begged for stories about when their daddy was little. Healing slowly. Marcus and Jennifer officially engaged. He'd been carrying the ring for months, but waited until the Sarah situation resolved. Didn't want her anywhere near something this important. Jennifer asked me to teach her business management, not to join the company, but to understand finance contracts. Protection. My mom never learned this stuff. She trusted my dad completely. When he died, she was lost. I want to be like you, strong enough that nobody can make me disappear. We met twice weekly. I taught accounting, contract law negotiation, how to read financial statements, how to spot fraud. This isn't about trust, I explained. You can trust Marcus completely and still need these skills because life happens, death happens, and women who don't understand money become vulnerable. At 70, I taught the next generation how to be dangerous, how to be unbreakable. Sarah's divorce finalized in 89 days fast clean. She demanded nothing signed, everything vanished. David's lawyer said she'd already moved. New city, new identity, probably already looking for her next target. Shouldn't we warn people? Nicole asked. We can't, I said. No criminal charges were filed for the theft. We took settlement. But she has a public criminal record now for assault on an elderly person that follows her, and 3 families know her pattern. We've done what we could. 6 months after my birthday, the family gathered small celebration. David gave me a 3-page handwritten letter. Apology, acknowledgement, commitment. You don't need to keep apologizing, I said. It's not for now, David replied. It's for later. For when you're 80 and maybe you do forget things. For when you're 90 and you need care. For when I'm making decisions about your well-being and I need to remember I need physical proof. That I woke up. That I learned that I'll never again mistake your age for weakness. I read it that night, cried, kept it in my jewelry box next to the wooden box containing 48 pearls. The business thrived, new contracts, new training initiatives, and we launched a construction apprenticeship program funded with the recovered stolen money. Named it after my mother, Dorothy Mitchell Apprenticeship Program, teaching young people construction skills, business ethics, how to build things that last. Robert at the opening ceremony. Your mother would have loved this. She would have loved that Sarah's theft funded it. I replied. That stolen money became something good. Poetic justice, the best kind. 1 year after the confrontation, our 49th wedding anniversary morning, I woke up and Robert was already gone. Unusual. He usually waited until we had coffee together before heading to work. I went through my morning routine. Shower dressed, walked down to the kitchen. 2 wrapped boxes sat on the counter. A note in Robert's handwriting beside them. Clears throat. I opened the first box carefully. My wedding necklace professionally restored. 48 pearls, all the ones we'd recovered that terrible birthday night. Rung on new silk thread. The clasp repaired and reinforced. The promise Sarah tried to destroy. Physically resurrected. I opened the second box. Pearl earrings, 2 pearls, the 2 that were lost that we never found. Except Robert had found a way to honor even what was destroyed. Took 2 matching pearls and created something new from the loss. The note inside 48 pearls recovered and restored. 2 pearls lost but not forgotten. Now there's something you can wear every day. We lost 2 years, but we still have time for our 50th. Below that dinner tonight. Let's celebrate 49 years and start planning our 50th anniversary vow renewal and the party we're gonna throw. I stood in my kitchen, the one I designed in the house we built together. On the floor, Robert laid surrounded by 48 years of accumulated life. I went to my vanity, sat down, opened the boxes again, carefully lifted the restored necklace. The weight felt right familiar. I fastened it around my neck, the same neck Sarah ripped it from 1 year ago. The pearls rested against my skin the way they did on my wedding day in 1976 when Robert promised me 50 years. I picked up the earrings, studied them. 2 pearls that should have been lost forever now transformed into something I could wear daily. Visible proof that what predators destroy, devoted partners find ways to resurrect. I put them on, looked at myself in the mirror, 71 years old, wearing restored promises, standing in my protected home, my business thriving under new leadership, my family healing slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely, my husband planning our 50-year vow renewal. Sarah tried to make me invisible, tried to erase me, tried to convince everyone that 70 meant done, irrelevant, disposable. But I'm here, still here, in this house we built, wearing these promises we kept with this foundation we protected. Ready to plan a 50-year celebration that will prove to everyone who tried to bury me early. You can't erase someone who spent 70 years learning exactly how powerful she is. I touched the necklace, felt the 48 pearls, thought about the 2 years we lost to Sarah's predation, thought about the year still ahead to reach that 50-year promise Robert made in 1976. The doorbell will ring tonight. Robert will take me to dinner. We'll talk about vow renewal plans, about the party we'll throw, about the 50 years we fought to protect, not triumphant, not perfectly healed, but standing, surviving strong. At 71, I'm not done, not fading, not disappearing. I'm just getting started. And anyone who sees my age as weakness will learn too late that a woman who built something from nothing is the most dangerous opponent they'll ever face. Because I have time experience, patience, partnership, and absolutely nothing left to lose. I look at myself one more time in the mirror wearing my restored necklace, my new earrings ready for whatever comes next. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. In the home I helped build, surrounded by the family I raised, with the man I chose, protected by the fortifications we created, and nobody will ever make me invisible again. Where are you listening from? Share your thoughts in the comments. If this story touched your heart, please like and subscribe for more inspiring stories. Thank you for watching Dust Revenge. Choose what you want to watch next on the screen.